Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, a new kind of podcast where no topic is off limits. We're bringing in experts and owners to have the conversations we should be having as a dog community. Each week, a new guest will share firsthand experiences, educational resources, or professional guidance to help you learn and grow along with your dog. You won't get one perspective here, you'll get them all, because every dog is different and every owner is too.
You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk, or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms.
This episode features a paid promotion by the Doggy Den. The Doggy Den specializes in personalized and unique items for you and your dog. From custom shirts and mugs to personalized blankets with your fur baby's face on each item. My favorite items that I have received from the Doggy Den are a t-shirt with Fitz's face and stickers of all three of my soul dogs. Check out Doggy Den today to get your personalized items of your pet today. I promise you won't regret it. Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk. We're back with another episode. Tonight I'm flying solo. Josh is not here with us tonight, so you just get me, as usual. But we do have a very special guest, Denise, with us tonight, and she's here to talk about a lot of things. Life with 5 dogs, starting a new small business, having a service pet. The list is kind of endless. So how are you doing tonight, Denise?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'm really glad that you were able to make it onto the show tonight. You do have a lot of information, I think, that is valuable to our listeners, as well as your adorable little shop. So why don't you just kind of give the listeners a little bit of a rundown about you and the dogs and just, some funny little things about your day-to-day life.
Perfect. So I live in Miami, South Florida. It's always hot. I have 5 dogs. I obviously have Tulip, which is, the queen of the house. She's a pit bull. She's an American pit bull terrier. And then we have her 2 sons, Bear and Jax. And then I have 2 Frenchies as well that I actually adopted, Ava and Dilly, a blue Frenchie and then a fluffy one. So, it's day to day, it's very interesting because I have to give the dogs, each of them, separate times. So imagine the entire day is just me giving the dogs time, separate time. We have them together a lot of times, but then they each want me for them, which is the fun part because they all want me for them at the same time sometimes too. So that's kind of my whole day.
I imagine that's pretty difficult to handle. 5 dogs. That's a lot of alone time to divvy out between 5 dogs. So how do you manage?
Oh, that's fun. That's a good question. So I do a lot of different activities like playing outside constantly, especially with the boys. They're 4 years old. They have a lot of energy. So the 2 of them, we play outside pretty much 5 or 6 times a day. So the 2 of them out there, and then I come back in the house when they're tired. I give them like a lick mat. They do that for some time. I make sure it's frozen so it lasts longer. So then I go in the house with Tuli, which Tuli needs a lot of my time because she wants all my attention at all times. And she gets a little bit angry in the sense that she just gets jealous. Like she doesn't understand, hey, why am I not getting all the attention? I'm the queen around here. So then I do that. And then with the Frenchies, they're fun because they also have a lot of energy and they're constantly just running around. And, I have cement in my backyard, so I have to be watchful for that as well because Ava, the blue one, she just randomly just runs back and forth like 10 times. She'll break a nail. So it's, it's a lot during the day. Little things like that people don't, realize that it's a lot of work. And then I have like a den area where I have a bed and we just go in there, all of us together. And then I give them each like a treat or a toy that they really like. And they'll be with the toy for like a good 10 minutes and then they come back. They're like, hey, we want more attention. So it's kind of like that the entire day.
Sounds like it's pretty hectic. And I imagine that all of the dogs are very different because my 2 dogs are very different. So how do you deal with having 5 totally different personalities in your home?
Well, I think, the main thing is getting to know their personalities. I know each one of them very well. I know their looks. I know when they're anxious, when they're sad. So that's an extremely important part. And that, obviously that comes with knowing your dog and knowing their antics. When I notice that one of them is a little off, like, and I can see it with their faces. I can tell automatically. I take that dog, I go on a walk with them. I just spend that quality time with them. Or I give them a treat. A lot of times, if I see that they're jealous or a certain way, I'll give them a treat and I'll sit with them. And then like, okay, this works. But it's definitely, different times of the day, they all need like specific attention. Like Tuli needs to snuggle with me at least 3 times a day. Because if not, she's just like depressed, which that might be partly my fault because I'm the same way with her. So, but it's a constant thing. And I walk them every single day, like 2 or 3 times a day. So that's an important part.
Who would you say is your wild child?
Oh, well, it's between Ava, the blue Frenchie, and Bear. Bear, he has the black patch. That's Tulip's son. They're pretty wild. Bear is a wild child. He will run the yard just chasing lizards and whatever else he finds, and for an hour, if we let him. He'll just run back and forth. And Ava is just, I always say Ava has ADHD, like myself, because she doesn't stop. She doesn't stop at all. And she doesn't walk. She runs everywhere. So I would say it's between Ava and Bear, I would say.
And all 5 of the dogs, I know you said that Jackson Bear are Tulip's sons, but what breeds are all of the dogs?
So Tulip, she's a American Pit Bull Terrier. We did her testing and she's an American Pit Bull. So we bred her with a bully. So that's why the boys look a little bit different because their father was a bully. He was a little stockier, a little shorter. That's why they look more like, especially Jax, the all white one. He looks much more like a bully. So they're American Pit Bull bully. That's what they are. And then the girls, they're Frenchies. The 2 other ones are Frenchies. A blue Frenchie and then a fluffy Frenchie, which we adopted. We pretty much rescued from the life that they would have had. It wasn't.
And so all the 2 Frenchies and Tulip, all 3 of those were rescues, correct?
Yes. And then the boys, we bred Tuli one time, and it was kind of like my husband. He was like, oh, we should breed her one time so we can have, when she's not around, which I don't even want to think about that. We have the boys. So initially, that's not something that I wanted to do, but I'm happy that we did it because they're amazing. I love my dogs so much. So I'm happy we did. And she had a litter. She was a mom, which was great to see that. That's another thing that I love. She's a great mom. Not so much now.
Well, yeah, they're older now.
Yeah,
they don't just the mom as much.
Yeah, and she wants nothing to do with them most of the time. She just wants to be with me. So that's the funny part.
I had a friend who she did a litter of puppies from one of her original pit bulls, and it was fun to watch them grow up over the years because she did keep 2 of them. And I just think, if you're doing it for that reason, to continue that legacy and those behavioral traits and the health quality of the pet, I don't see anything wrong with that. And obviously, I wouldn't promote that currently at this time, just because we do have so many shelter overpopulation issues. But it truly is one of those things that if you're doing it for the right reason, if you're doing it to preserve the breed line, I don't have anything against breeders. I just think that there are certain types of breeding that, people shouldn't be profiting off of. But it sounds like you did a really good job finding a dog for her to have a litter with. And obviously the boys are beautiful. So because Tulip is beautiful. So of course you had a wonderful litter.
Yeah, it was. Oh no, I was just gonna say it was a great experience, and I don't regret it. I'm very much against backyard breeding and all the things that are going on now. Yeah, it was a good experience. I'm very grateful for them.
Let's talk a little bit about Tulip because she is a special dog. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got her, the situation you removed her from, and exactly why now she is so special.
Of course, she's definitely a very special dog in every single way. So back in 2015, my husband had a friend that told us about some guy that was just breeding pit bulls, and he was pretty much living in a crate her entire life up to 4 months old when we decided that we were going to go pick her up from an extremely horrible situation. When we found her, she was a tiny little puppy. She was 4 months and just living in a crate all the time with a bunch of other dogs, which, I look back now and I wish I would have taken them all, but, unfortunately, I couldn't, but I look back and that kind of affects me. But I saved her, so that's, that's at least that part is amazing. But they cut her ear. She had the fighter's cut, which is honestly, they were going to use her for fighting. So who knows what life she would have been living now, or maybe not even alive. Really think about it.
Yeah, that is definitely a scary thing to think about. I've talked about it before that Toby was a bait dog prior to me rescuing him. And, Toby is a little Chihuahua mix. He's only 12 pounds. And when I got him, he had a broken hip and a broken jaw, and he lost a bunch of teeth. And he was mean. He was pretty much feral. And, watching a dog come from such a sad situation like that, and then, them being just awful and mean and, this total little spitfire dog and turning into this little lovey-dovey potato that loves everyone was really, really a rewarding experience. And I feel it's like the same thing. You take a dog from a situation where you took Tulip from, and, you changed the course of her life, and you prevented her from having, trauma. Obviously, like you said, they were definitely probably going to fight her with the way that her ears are cut. And I know that you get a lot of heckling about the fact that her ears are cut the way that they are. But like you said, they did that. You did not do that.
Exactly. Every single time that, I go out, somebody has something nasty to say to me, or, not even, when somebody's giving you the look like, oh, why would you cut her ears? Or, you're such an evil person, which in reality, we saved her. She lives better than we do. She saved me.
I think that a lot of people feel that way about their dogs. And I'm not here to start an argument about, ear docking and tail docking. I have pretty firm opinions about that, but we'll save that for another episode. I think, dogs were born with ears and tails for a reason. And the reason that we're modifying them is for breed standards that, humans decided what the breed standards were. Dogs were born the way that they were born. So ears and tails are for health, protection, balance, all kinds of things. And so I know that you would not have chosen to remove her ears if you had been able to prevent it, because Jax and Bear both have their ears. So
Exactly. People tell me all the time, oh, why would you cut her ears and not cut the boys? It's because that's not something I believe in. I'm extremely against it. That's not something that I would ever do. I love their ears.
Yeah,
Pretty little ears.
They have some great floppy ears. That is for sure.
They're so cute. I actually, I always try to envision Suli with her ears. I can't do it, but I always try to envision her little ears. Even though I love her ears now, but it would have been nice to have seen her little floppy ears.
They definitely would be a different look for her, for sure. I bet it would have changed, but she's such a cutie pie. I don't think it would have mattered if she had her ears or not. So while we're still on Tulip, now you've saved her, you've brought her home, and you decided that you were going to not only have her as a companion dog, you decided to take that a step further.
Yes. So she is my psychiatric service dog, that's why I say she saved me initially. Yes, I saved her from a horrible situation, but she was meant for me the whole time. It's specifically because we're meant for each other. I saved her, she saved me, but she is my service dog. I take her pretty much everywhere. I decided to do that because her personality is, I've had many dogs my whole life, and Tulip is just so in tune with everybody's emotions and feelings, especially mine. And I noticed that when she was a little puppy, the love that she gives, and just knowing when you're not when you're sad, when you're happy. That's something very special. I don't, a lot of dogs can tell, but some dogs are just more in tune and they know what to do just naturally, which is what came naturally to her from the start.
You hire a specific trainer to service her, or did you service her yourself?
I initially hired a trainer to just kind of learn myself because I never trained, and then I did the training myself. Every single day for a good year and a half, constantly training, taking her everywhere with me. And then you obviously have to do a test to be certified where she has to stay put, in any situation, whatever you train her in as well, which for me is a lot for my PTSD and my anxiety and my panic attacks. She helps me with that. No reactivity to dogs. That's extremely, extremely important. You see situations in the street and you're like, oh, okay, that's not a service dog. And I automatically know because Tuna just looks at it, like just sits there and stares like, okay, she knows exactly what to do. So, it's interesting. It's interesting, especially being that she's a service dog and people are so confused by it.
Well, I think that there is a stigma when it comes to service dogs, and people automatically assume that it's going to be a doodle or a retriever or some kind of, normal family dog. I'm putting that in quotations, normal family dog. But honestly, like you said, it's more about if the dog is in tune with the owner. It's about how smart the dog is. It's about how responsive the dog is. And saying that one breed is better at it than another is just like saying, a man is better than a woman at something or vice versa. Like you can't judge a book by its cover. You have to let each individual kind of reign their own territory and represent themselves, because you would never be able to find enough service dogs for people if you didn't give all the breeds a chance. So I think that it's fantastic that you were able to find a dog that met those needs for you and obviously is sensitive to your emotions and when you're having some of your health indicators that lead her to tasking with you. Can you give the listeners an example of what her tasking looks like?
Of course. So let's say I take her pretty much everywhere. I like to go to the stores with her just because when there's a lot of people, like TJ Maxx, for example, or maybe Marshalls or Target or whatnot. If she sees that she can tell if my heart rate is fast. That's one of her, most important tasks. Because if my heart rate starts to go up, I start immediately thinking that I'm going to have a panic attack. And it sounds crazy to say, but that my heart is going to explode, which is, that's just something that I deal with on my own. So she knows exactly when that's happening, and she will come towards me and she will kind of bump her head on my knee, on my leg. And then I'll kneel down and she just puts her body pressure completely on me. And if she notices that I'm kind of still not all there, like my heart rate, she'll put more pressure on me. And like, hey, you need to pet me. You need to come down here. And she'll just continue doing that until I forgot about my heart rate or a panic attack or the people around me. So that for me is one of the most important things that she does. Just calming me down, getting my mind off the situation, off the panic attack, or just getting my mind off my mind, which is kind of, I understand what I'm saying because my mind starts to just wander and I feel like, okay, I'm gonna have a panic attack right in front of all these people, which just recently she actually stopped me from having when we were at TJ Maxx, and we went to a corner and she stood in front of me, initially just stand in front of me, and then she comes over to me and puts her entire body weight on me. And it's just incredible. Yeah, it's incredible what she does for
really
me.
Cool. I think that, the benefits of a service dog definitely are so important. And I think that, there are definitely distinctions between what a service dog is and what an emotional support dog. And you had mentioned that she had to take a test. How did you find someone qualified to give her that test?
Well, actually, you do it through the AKC, the website, the American Kennel Society, the AKC. And then there's a bunch of places there that do training, but then you go somewhere and you do the test. yourself, like not somebody else, but you have to do the test yourself with your dog. And like a certain situation, like with other dogs around, you leave her in, like, you leave her, she stays, you tell her to stay, and then you walk away, and other dogs are coming around you. Because the biggest thing is the situation of things happening around. And the dog, stay put and be calm in any situation. That's really, one of the biggest things for a service dog. Because at the end of the day, it's a dog, and they get, they're dogs. Sometimes they're going to get distracted, but for the most part, the dog has to be in tune with you. So that's the test. So you go on the website and you look for different places that they offer the test. You can train the dog yourself as well. You can hire a trainer to train the dog for you, and then you have to take the test. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense to me. I am going to provide a link to the AKC in your episode notes that explains service dogs and their procedure and all that stuff. So the listeners can look it up and kind of get a little bit more information about that. I know that there are a lot of people who are interested in having service dogs, but again, let's reinforce here. You said 1.5 years of training with her and working consistently with her and teaching her these task behaviors to alert you when she notices, your heart rate, or she can tell that you're going to have an anxiety attack. Because a lot of things that people don't know in regards to animal is, their hearing is so much better. Animals can smell emotions. Animals can smell familial relations, all kinds of things, which makes them so much more better built to help us deal with these kinds of situations. And then, of course, the contact and the attention and the actual physical touching of them releases that dopamine, which then, helps you balance out your own situation. And, mental health is one of those things that we do like to talk about on this show, because it is really important, and it is something that, we need to be open and talking about, and not, shoving under the rug or being shameful or afraid to talk about, because it's something that's so common. And more, everybody that I talk to, on Instagram, everybody that I interview for the podcast, there's just this huge overlap between dog ownership or dog guardianship and mental health. And I love seeing that so many people have realized that a dog can help in so many ways. And if that means that it's just an emotional support animal, that's fine. But the problem that we run into is that people are pretending that their emotional support animals are actually service animals. And there is a really big difference. Those animals are not trained to be in public. They're just, it's a letter that your therapist or doctor signs off on. They don't even evaluate the dogs. Both of my dogs are registered as ESA dogs, but I don't take them out in public and ask them to behave in a certain manner, because I know that they're not tested. I know that they're not qualified to do that. And I think that, there's always going to be some abuse of that system, but I definitely think that is something that we need to make more people aware of, because when we can identify the difference between an actual service dog and an emotional support dog, we can kind of start to really lay down the rules and make sure that people are not being denied access when they have a legitimate reason to have their service dog there with them.
Exactly, 100%. It makes such a difference. And it affects, people like me that I actually need to have her with me for my mental health. And another thing I wanted to mention was I actually also got a letter, which you can do as well. You get a letter from your therapist, which is my psychologist or my psychiatrist, either one, a letter stating that, okay, you need a therapy dog or a psychiatric therapy dog, service dog, So remember, the therapy dog's a little different. That's, but the service dog, you can get it from your doctor. The letter is huge. And then obviously you have to do your exam. So for me, it was, yes, I needed the doctor. Yes, that's definitely, you need this. And then you go ahead and do the test. That's just something I wanted to mention. Because some people think, oh, you just need the letter. No, you need the letter and the test.
Yeah, and then they have to be registered with the service dog registry too. You have to like fill out some forms and all that kind of stuff too. And I know that's all, like I said, on the AKC, we'll provide all that. So anybody who wants to jump down that research rabbit hole, if you're interested in servicing your dog, I'm going to provide a link, like I said, in the episode details so that you guys are able to look it up and potentially find the resources that you need to service your own dog.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of resources, which is great. A lot of trainers will train your dog for you and, give them kind of an idea of what they have to do. So it's not as hard for you to do it, and then take the test, which works.
Again, this is another area too where you need to look for a specific kind of trainer. You need to do your research here and in your area and make sure that you're finding someone that is certified to train a service dog. You can't just randomly pick some person that doesn't have any kind of certifications as a dog trainer and expect them to help your dog get up to par. You have to find the right kind of trainer, and that is something that is really important for people to understand. You can't just hire somebody who has no qualifications, no certifications, no training licenses, hasn't passed their exams, and then, think that that person is going to be able to pass your dog through a test when they have zero qualifications.
Exactly, because it's definitely not a test that, any dog can pass. I don't like saying that, but it's the reality. I wanted to make one of my boys a service dog, but I know that most likely his one issue is jumping. So no matter, I work on that every single day, and we're getting better. But I come to the conclusion, maybe he won't be, a service dog, but maybe Jax will. So it just, it just depends. It depends on the dog, the trainer, and yourself.
Absolutely, 100%. It's all about the work that you're willing to put into it, and the consistency and the pace and the environment that you allow your dog to practice in. Little things. You start little. You start at home and you train the behaviors, and then slowly you move to the front yard or the backyard, and then you move out into public areas. This is, like you said, 1.5 years. That's a long process. Even service dogs that people purchase for, $25,000 and up, those dogs are trained for 2 to 3 years sometimes before they're eligible to be sold to somebody with disabilities for, a CNI dog or a fall dog or any other category of service dog that's out there, because there are a lot. And I think that's another misconception, is people don't realize how many different types of service dogs there are out there.
Yes. And something else I wanted to actually mention, that, the training is always happening. Something that I recently taught her, which it just happened kind of naturally, but now it's like a sign for her that she knows. So eye contact with her. I don't even have to say anything. If I look at her, I look at her and then I look back, she knows that, okay, she needs me right now. She needs my attention right now. She needs pressure. And then she knows if I do that twice, I don't even have to say anything to her. She automatically comes to wherever I'm at, and she'll do what she has to do, which is incredible. I think we started doing that maybe like 6 months ago, and it just kind of happened naturally. And now it's automatic.
That's really awesome. I think that's a process of learning together over the years, right? She's learned your behaviors, you've learned her behaviors, and she knows when you're in distress, and she's notifying you, which is incredible. I think that's definitely a relationship that is constantly evolving and growing, and it's really neat to see that you as an owner see that she is progressing with you. So that's a huge shout out to both of you for that relationship and really creating that bond between the two of you.
Thank you. Yes, it's pretty amazing.
Let's talk a little bit again about the lifestyle with all of the dogs, because having the service dog obviously takes up a good chunk because you're constantly working with her, and you said that you try really hard to give individual time to the other dogs. But what I kind of want to talk about a little bit here is feeding your dogs? Because I know that there are a lot of changes happening right now as far as what people think they should be feeding their dogs. Kibble is out, raw is in, supplements, all of these things that are really kind of difficult to learn and understand and get to know, and having more opinions about what to feed your dogs and how much it costs, I think is kind of an invaluable thing for the listeners, just to kind of learn a little bit about how each of us is providing nutrition for our dogs. So let's talk a little bit about how and what you feed and what kind of supplements you use as well.
Okay, so this is going to seem, I'm sure it's going to seem a little bit much, because it is, but I have 5 dogs, and I have big dogs and very picky ones, and they need specific things. So I'm spending it can go between $1,200 to $1,500 a month just on the dogs, on their food and their supplement. So right now we feed them kibble, the raw mix, and then I give them raw as well. So it's a mix of the kibble and the raw. So the bag itself is like $110, which is open farm, that's worth the raw mix. Has salmon and some other fish in it, which they love it, which I found that it's been amazing for them. And then I mix in some raw as well. And this is twice a day. So I get about 3 of those bags a month. And then I buy a good chunk of, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's funny because they want more of it each time. I sound like I'm extremely strict with the dogs and how they eat. And, people come to my house and they want to give them like scraps and whatnot. And I just don't allow it. I'm very, very, very strict with their food and their supplements.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I have a dog that has pancreatitis, and so I have to be very careful about what he's allowed to have. Occasionally he's allowed to have like maybe some pizza crust, or some mac and cheese, but that's about the extent of what Toby is allowed to have. I recently also have switched Fitz to open farm, and Fitz is a really picky eater. And we also use the Pet Matrix supplements, and seeing Fitz enjoy his food again, like him get excited about mealtime and for him to eat the entire bowl of food, it's like, my dog has joy at mealtime. And so, yes, it costs $150 a month for just the food, because we do the raw kibble mix and then we do the freeze-dried raw lamb. And so it's a little bit of both, and we mix it in, and then he gets like a quail egg, and he gets some, kefir and probiotics, and make some bone broth, kind of mix it all together. And he gets excited about it. And I think that, yes, the cost seems extreme, but seeing him so happy and seeing him actually eat his food and be happy about it is just so rewarding. It's so rewarding. It's so worth it, even though it is very expensive.
Yes, it's definitely the best feeling in the world. And we've been using Pet Matrix as well. They're amazing. And I mean, Tootie is 9 years old. She's, she just turned 9. She's not a pup. She's 9, and she has so much energy. She jumps into the car. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And ever since I've been giving her Pet Matrix as well, her energy levels are incredible. All the dogs. So it's important. If you want your dog to live a long, healthy life, this is just part of what it is.
I completely agree. With that, we've been using the Pet Matrix for a couple of months now, and even just the move for Toby, who was, he's 12 or 13 years old. He wasn't jumping up as much. He wasn't running around and having as much energy as he previously had. And I have seen a massive change in his energy level, and he's jumping up on the bed again. And it's just so wonderful to see that he's getting that support that he needs. And I love it. I love it. And if you guys are listening to this episode and you haven't listened to episode number 12 yet, that is with Tanisha from Pet Matrix. And she gives you guys the rundown on all the products and the information. And you guys can absolutely check out their website, because these supplements are top notch. Speaking of small businesses, Denise just recently opened a small business called the Doggy Den, which is the sponsor for this episode, actually. So since we're talking about it, let's get into it with the Doggy Den and why you started it and what your goals are with it and some of the products that you offer to the customers.
Perfect. So my dream has always been to have a sanctuary or a rescue saving dogs. I want to help dogs somehow. And I'm definitely, it's going to happen. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to open a shop and it's going to be all for dogs, custom, and their owners. So things, sweaters for dogs, onesies for dogs, bandanas, but then also custom products for their who's the master, right? The dog, they're the ones in charge. So we want to wear everything with our dog's face on it. So I figured, you know what? I can draw. I'm actually very creative. So let's do this. So that's pretty much my goal. Create beautiful custom products for yourself and for your dog. And eventually open a dog sanctuary, a dog, rescue, right? Rescue all the dogs. And then, combining the two together is really what, that's my motivation, just saving the dogs. So that's what my store is going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, combining the two, what an idea. I mean, if you are creating products and you're taking some of those profits and giving back to the shelter that you have, sanctuary, whichever it is, that you have put together and organized down the road, that's a great way to, keep yourself those dogs in good care and good hands and good condition and provide things for them in those environments that maybe they potentially wouldn't have at other shelters. So I think that's an excellent idea. You do have some really fun products. I have some of your products. I have several of your products. My current favorite, though, I think is the Fits t-shirt that you made, and then the stickers of all three of my dogs, Cajun, who has passed, and Toby and Fitz. And I think that, that's just one of those things that can stick them on my water bottle and I can carry them around with me everywhere. And you really do have a wide range of products that are available. And like you said, everything is customizable. So it doesn't have to be one dog. It can be two dogs. You can pick the colors of your shirts. You can pick the color of the background on the cup or the ornaments, and you just do a really good job bringing the character and the emotion of my dog alive. And I love that, because I look at that t-shirt or that sticker and I'm like, she did such a good job. Like, that's my dog. Look how cute he is. And it makes me so happy to wear it. Yeah. It brings me joy. So you're obviously doing it right, because if you have combined something that you're passionate about and are, putting it out there for others to enjoy and get joy from, then, I think you're winning. I think that's exactly what you need to be doing. So make sure you guys check out the Doggy Den, because Denise can make you the most incredible products, blankets, mugs, coffee cups, stickers, and, reach out to her on Instagram at the Doggy Den or at Tulip the Pity if you have questions or you can't find something, because of course we want you to be able to get the products that you want. And if you can't get a hold of Denise, get a hold of me and I will get a hold of her for you. Is there anything else that you would like to say about the business before we move on to our last topic?
About the business, who doesn't love, this is like kind of like where my mind was at, who doesn't love having their dog on everything, which is kind of, I think that's the main theme of my store. You want your dog on a mug, you can get your dog's face on a mug, a shirt, a onesie for babies. I've actually had some people order really cute onesies, because they're having a baby. It's, it's honestly, it's endless because there's so many different things. So that's just one thing I want to throw out there.
I think that's great. And variety is always a good thing. And yes, I do want my dog's face on everything. I absolutely do.
Me too. I have so many stickers of Tulip, and it just brings me so much joy to see her face everywhere.
Me too. Walk around the corner, got the sticker It's like the same thing with the Straight Up Dog Talk merch. I see the sweatshirt hanging on the hook and it gets me all excited. Or I walk around the corner and I make a cup of tea and it's got Fitz and Toby and Cajun spaces on it because I ordered it from you. And it's just, I don't know, it's fun to see those things and know that, you reflect who you are and what you love by what you surround yourself with and what you wear. And that kind of just is another way to speak to other people about who you are. And I love that you are helping people do that and find ways to keep their dogs with them when they can't necessarily take them with them all the time.
Yes, exactly.
So the last thing I kind of want to talk about is owner accountability. And this is kind of a topic that goes all over the board. There's a lot of, again, negative stigmas out there with things like dogs who are trained with muzzles. People automatically think that they're aggressive. People don't want to crate train their dogs because they think that it's mean. People letting their dogs off leash, even though they're reactive or have fear-based aggression. And just, some of the things that we're trying to correct as a dog community, and we're trying to make other owners understand that we're not being rude, we're not being jerks. We just have a certain standard that we set for our dogs and certain boundaries that we set for our dogs, and we want them to behave a certain way. And if another dog comes out of nowhere and attacks your dog and your dog reacts because of that, people just tend to freak out. So I think that some of those categories that fall into place are just things that people don't think about before they get a dog. And owner accountability is definitely something that you need to be thinking about for getting a dog. So in your opinion, what is the best advice for someone who's thinking about getting a dog, their first dog, their second dog, their fifth dog? And how can they learn to be accountable as an owner and help others by not allowing their dog to misbehave or react to other dogs in situations that they're unfamiliar with?
So the first thing I do want to mention is if you're thinking about getting a dog, or another dog, just be 1,000,000%. I say 1,000,000% sure, because so many people now, I'm going to get a dog because, they're so cute. That's not the reason why you get a dog. The dog is forever. It's not like you're going to throw away your child. So I think that's extremely, extremely important. People tell me all the time, I don't know how you do it. You have too many dogs. Well, you have too many kids. How does that sound? Like, you have to be sure, 1,000%. That's what I always tell people. You have to be sure that this is what you want, because you can't just take them to the pound, to the shelter, and drop them off. Their dogs get depressed. It's a living being. So that for me is extremely important. And that's what I tell people all the time, because then, you're hurting the dog, and that's not fair. That's just not fair. The next thing I want to say is, I feel like you need to know your dog. I'm going to give you an example. People that have their dogs off leash, for example. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with it when I'm walking my dogs and your dog is supposed to be trained and it's not, and it attacks my dog. That's where I feel like that's accountability, because if your dog is not really trained, then your dog shouldn't be off leash. That's one of my things. You need to be accountable. You need to know your dog 100%. Like, you need to know your dog's antics. I know when my dogs are iffy. If there's people over my house and there's children in my house, I know when my dogs have had enough of the kids. I tell the parents, or I spend some time with my dogs, or I crate train. They're crate trained, so they go in the crate by themselves. So I think that's huge. You need to know your dog. Either if you're ready for a dog, 1,000%, great. And then you need to learn your dog. Know everything about your dog. I think that's extremely important as an owner, as a pet parent, a dog mom or a dog dad.
I think that is really excellent advice for dog owners and potential dog owners. And yeah, it is work, and it is a commitment. It's a lifelong commitment. And that doesn't mean that's your lifelong. It's the lifetime of the dog. You're investing in that dog. You shouldn't just be turning around and taking it back to a shelter, giving it away, trying to rehome it, because it gets hard. That's same thing like you said with kids. Kids are hard too. You can't just turn around and throw the kids over to the adoption agency or whatever. That's not how it works. Animals are not disposable. People are not disposable. When you make a choice to bring a pet into your home, that is a commitment that you are making, and you should be 100% ready to do it. And I agree with you. If you are iffy, if you are questioning it at all, you should absolutely maybe wait 6 months and revisit the topic.
Yes, exactly. I agree with you. It's such a huge thing, and people don't realize that. Oh, it's just a dog. No, it's the family. My dogs are my family. They're number one. My dogs, honestly, they come before me. I don't care what anybody says.
Me too. Mine too. Well, Denise, it has been amazing having you here tonight. Again, remember the links for the Doggy Den are in the episode details. As mentioned before, this episode is sponsored by the Doggy Den. And we are so grateful that you were able to come and visit with us tonight. Denise, do you have any last words for the listeners?
Thank you so much for having us. We're very grateful. We love you. And I hope you guys love the episode. And if you have any questions, just, message me on Instagram, also TikTok, for funny videos. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. That's it for this episode of Straight Up Dog Talk. And we will see you guys next week. This episode features a paid promotion by the Doggy Den. The Doggy Den specializes in personalized and unique items for you and your dog. From custom shirts and mugs to personalized blankets with your fur baby's face on each item. My favorite items that I have received from the Doggy Den are a t-shirt with Fitz's face and stickers of all 3 of my soul dogs. Check out Doggy Den today to get your personalized items of your pet today. I promise you won't regret it. Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited, produced, and co-hosted by Josh Wasta under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe to be sure you don't miss an episode, and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madison Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.